Hey, everybody, welcome to Vassals of Kingsgrave, where we are going to discuss some of the major Oscar contenders with a special focus on some films that we love, including Poor Things and The Holdovers. My name is Vina007. I will be your host today, and I am joined today by Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Steph, or GSDG on the forums.
And we will be joined momentarily by Julia, aka No True Lady. And this started off really being a Poor Things review, but Stephanie and I recorded a Holdovers episode that was lost to the Darkling Plains because I forgot to tell Stephanie you have to download the recording from Craig on the Discord within a week. So hopefully we're going to get to that too. And I thought really maybe a way to approach this short movie podcast is to go through the Oscar nominations and we can talk about the films that we've seen, whether we think they were, awarded the right number of noms or anything was overlooked, and just take more time over the films that we really love. So in general, Stephanie, like how much of attention do you pay to award shows? Do you give a crap? Do you think they hold any value?
Not so much, but then of course, if something I like is nominated, I go hard for that.
It's true, isn't it? I mean, to a certain extent, all of these award shows are very silly, and there are very famous cases of films that were overlooked that we would now think of as masterpieces. But they do, I think, especially for the smaller independent films, they really do meaningfully add to the bottom line and to the commercial success. So I think the nominations almost matter more to the smaller films and getting those directors and producers funding their next projects. So they can be quite influential.
Yeah, and I don't have the bandwidth to, agonize over the inside baseball of everything. And, sometimes, just as a layperson, sure, you can appreciate someone's body of work and be happy that they're, they finally got it, even if they weren't that particular thing didn't really stand out to you. But
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, I think last year Stephanie Shu was robbed, but
Agree.
it's
There are
and
always years where they're rectifying, right? Like Scorsese finally winning for Aviator, which I don't think anyone really thinks is in his top 10 films, but
mm,
and then it goes on, doesn't it? Because then you knock someone else out who probably should have got one.
right.
So the infamous decisions go on. It's worth saying also that as with all of these voting cohorts, this is industry insiders. Once you're allowed to vote, you're never taken off the rolls. So it skews older, whiter, maler. They have tried to sort of diversify the voting ranks of late, but it still remains a sort of a very particular closed demographic that's voting, and also people who really are industry insiders. So,
Yeah, but that said, I'm happy this year that the Holdovers was getting some recognition at what was it, the Golden Globes. So hope that continues.
yeah, and I think there is something to that older skewing demographic that a film like The Holdovers probably gets more love because it's a 70s
Yeah,
film that feels like a 70s film, which are the films we love.
and
Anyway,
how many members of the Academy went to a boarding school like that? So
exactly. Okay, well, let's get into it. Let's start off with Oppenheimer. So, Oppenheimer has 13 nominations, which is a lot. Apparently, only La La Land, Titanic have received more nominations. Oh, and of course, the iconic All About Eve, which is one of my favorite all time films. So, it's done really well. I feel like Christopher Nolan, who's been so often overlooked, is just feeling the love on this film. It's like the Academy has suddenly realized, shit, this guy's done an amazing body of work. This is a great film. We need to show him some love. The most nominated film, how do you feel about that? Is this your kind of film? Did you enjoy it? Have you seen it?
no, I gave it a 1 on the Vassals of Kingsgrave thing. I don't know if that ever came out, but I didn't regret seeing the film. I saw it in a double feature with Barbie, as God intended. But it wasn't my film. It's just like something about just like Oppenheimer's martyr complex just didn't really get to me. I wasn't big on the cheaters never prosper style of structure to the entire film. So
Ah, interesting. Up until now, a lot of Chris Nolan films haven't done it for me. I've been left very cold by them. I'm not that into science or sci-fi or debating physics. And I remember coming out of Dunkirk, which was his other World War II movie, and I'd seen it on preview, so no one else had written a review that was up on IMDb. I don't know why. And I really slated it. And I mean, he has very big fanboys who are very aggressive and nasty on the internet. And they absolutely came after me. They were like, "You haven't seen it. This is just lies." Because they couldn't fathom the idea that someone just didn't like his films. And for me, Nolan, up until this film, was always the guy who was technically superb. I mean, just a cineast, technically working in the medium of celluloid film at a level beyond everyone else, just sound design, in camera effects, just technically superb. But I never cared about his characters. Whereas with Oppenheimer, I really found the character or the person who is Oppenheimer fascinating. I found the person of Strauss, the RDJ character, even more fascinating. I love these sort of flawed anti-hero characters. So I found a lot to get really into on the human side, as well as the technical side. So for me, it was kind of like in 2023, I felt there were 3 films that were just operate above and beyond all others, technically. So Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and Zone of Interest. So I was really pleased to see this get all the love. I mean, it is interesting because it's a real mix. If I look at those 13, it's got Best Picture, Best Directing for Nolan, Actor for Cillian Murphy, Supporting Actor Robert Downey Jr., agree. Cinematographer Hoyt von Hoytema, agree. Costume, Editing, Makeup, Score, Ludwig Göransson, Production Design, Sound Design, Adapted Screenplay. I'm kind of cool with all of them. I probably wouldn't have given Emily Blunt Best Supporting Actress. I just felt there were better performances out there last year. Quite a small role.
Yeah, I mean, I know like Christopher Nolan just does not think that women have interior lives, but the like there was that point during like like as like the like political pressure is closing in on Oppenheimer, and she's just reduced to just like like screaming about we're gonna lose the house,
Yeah, I
as if
didn't
that's the only
appreciate.
thing to matter for her. So
Yeah, I mean, both women, right? Even the Florence Pugh character, just very these, women. This is not really, I don't know, like if I was to find a flaw in this film, it would be the depiction of women and the female characters. And to me, Emily Blunt, she's not an actress I particularly respond to, so I thought that was overdone. But overall, I was kind of happy that it won out. Poor
wait,
thing.
wasn't
Oh,
I
sorry.
liked Emily Blunt in The Devil Wears Prada? I don't know. Maybe I'm just that age where that's a very formative movie for me. But
Yeah, the funny, jokey cameo. I think she's quite funny. I don't like her in serious films.
Oh, I did want to say about Oppenheimer. I think that Oppenheimer is going to win Best Picture.
Yeah, for
Honestly,
sure.
yeah.
It's got a lock on
And
picture, directing, best actor, best supporting
mhm,
actor. I think it's
yes,
going to get all those for sure.
yes. But just like with Poor Things, Oppenheimer, I do think is Chris Nolan's masterpiece. Whereas before I thought it was Inception, but he really again took all the aspects of what he does and applied it in a slightly different way to really just bring out something really special.
Yeah, it's his
So,
due. I feel like they're going to give it to him because they feel they're going to award a body of work, basically, which is
exactly,
fine.
exactly.
Which is
But I
absolutely
think
fine.
Emma Stone's gonna win Best Actress. I mean, Cillian
I
Murphy, I
agree.
think, is a lock for Best Actor. Yeah.
Let's get into Poor Things. So the next highest nominated film, which to me is something of a miracle, is Poor Things. It has 11 nominations, which is a lot, which to me, for a very sexually explicit, very ideas forward, kind of weird, freaky, gothic, steampunk, sexy, weird ass movie is just a miracle. I love when an independent movie like this, and I know Yorgos Lanthimos, the director, had success with The Favourite, so he wasn't an unknown. But I love that the Academy has given this so many awards. So this is up for Best Picture, Directing, Supporting Actor for Ruffalo, having the time of his life. I really hope he gets it. Actress Emma Stone, cinematography Robbie Ryan, costume design, which is just absolutely wacky Victoriana plastics nude. It's all over the place, right? It's just so cool. Young costume designer called Holly Waddington. I want to go inside her mind. She just seems very cool. Editing, makeup, amazingly weird, wacky score by some young person called Yerskin Fendrix, which I just think is a hilarious name. Production design and adapted screenplay. So it's kind of one technical, acting, everything, not one, being nominated for. We've not discussed this on VOG before. Like, obviously, I said that for me, this with Oppenheimer and Zone of Interest were not even 5-star films. They were so beyond everything else I saw last year. How did you find Poor Things?
this is one of the best films I've seen this year.
Mm.
It's very, yeah, just like I love how unafraid to be weird it is. I love Emma Stone's, combination of, like even in like, like the sets and the costuming and like, like Emma Stone's combination of, like big ruffled vulvular, Victorian blouses with like her mini skirt and go-go boots. uh like how you just casually they have, they CGI'd in those like those like hybrid, animals in the professor's garden.
Yeah, the half and half
How-
animals.
yes, and the, like I love how, and look, I am big, or I'm not into the born sexy yesterday trope that this is called, that they're making fun of here. So, like when I was a kid, before, like, like I watched The Fifth Element and I hated it. So because of the love interest character. And I know that that's very like blasphemous to a certain corner of nerddom, and I'm sorry that I don't like your thing. But the but it was like that was just like way before like it had, or like people or the internet decided on a name for it, right? So I love that, it was a stroke of genius to have this character leave the only guy she's ever been with and to, go on that rant of, oh, once she had sex with that guy in the brothel, she was like, oh, well, now it's actually improved our relationship because now I do know how good I have it. Thanks, or thank you, babe.
But in a way, I think it is. I mean, far more in some senses than Barbie. It is a powerful feminist movie, or is it? Well, maybe not even feminist, just sex positive. This idea of this character who knows no shame. She discovers sex as she discovers anything else, and this woman who made us kind of like an experimental plaything by quote unquote God is going to discover her sexuality. She's also going to discover intellectual maturity. I mean, one of my favorite scenes is when Mark Ruffalo's character, Wedderburn, throws her book off the boat, and then the very rich European
You're
woman
in
next to her
my
just gives
son.
her another one. Yeah, just gives her an iconic actress, gives her another one. So it's a woman who's discovering control over her own sexuality, her intellectual maturity, discovers that actually she had been, she's got the scar from the cesarean section. So control over your own fertility, which is a big theme now, sadly, in politics. To me, it's like this really gonzo, crazy. I mean, it's so much fun. You've got to see it as a dark comedy, but kind of
Mhm.
subversively is giving you all this politics as well, which I loved. I just loved
Right, and
everything
it's a
about this
dark
film.
comedy in a different way than The Favorite.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
to succeed at one black comedy is quite the feat, right? Because you have to really thread a needle. But to do two separate ones in two very different ways on, like as a man talking about misogyny both times.
Yeah, and if you watch, I mean, his earlier films, they're all, well, not all. Killing of a Sacred Deer isn't really, but if you watch one of his first films, Lobster, which is a kind of satire of societal pressure to date and find a partner, sort of very sort of heteronormative, all those pressures. That is so dark. I mean, in a way, these recent ones are lighter, but I just think Yorgos Lanthimos is one of the most fascinating directors working today, and Emma Stone is so brave. I mean, like physically brave to do this role because of the nudity but just like
Mhm.
thinking of films that she's done, like even Birdman, and she picks interesting films. I think.
Yeah.
I really
No,
hope she
I
wins.
think, yeah, I know. I want to give this a 5 out of 5, but it's been a thought in the back of my head the last few days that they showed her going to town on those oysters and she's having this huge sexual awakening, but they're not showing her going down on a woman.
Yeah, true. Well, that's more about the MPAA than anything else, I'm guessing.
Well, I mean, she's receiving, right? But
Oh dear. Anything else you want to say about Poor Things?
yeah, I mean, just like, yeah, I mean, I had to look away from a lot of the surgery bits, but this is still a great film, right? I was just talking about how like I really want to give it a 5. So I think this is like a smarter film than The Holdovers, but like The Holdovers has, more heart, and so that I think that makes it like just edges it out for me. But yeah, this is such a smart, subversive film, and like teaching women that they should masturbate.
Yeah, basically. I mean, like, I think that in a way, I love The Holdovers too. You know that The Holdovers has my heart.
Mhm,
And it's the film I think that in years to come I will watch the most out of all of these films. But I
mhm,
feel that it's a film that could have been made in 1976. It's a film that is the best of its kind, whereas I think Poor Things is just doing something bigger, bolder, braver, more sort of
mhm.
insane, basically. So, Julia, great for you to join us. What do you think of Poor Things?
So first of all, I apologize for my lateness. I was helping my father god down in the laboratory by mutilating a cadaver. So
Naturally.
and Steph, yes, and Stephanie, cheese to meet you. Um,
Yes, nice
now,
to meet you.
yes, I have unfortunately not seen all the Oscar-nominated films. I think I've only seen Oppenheimer, which I loved, and Poor Things, which I loved. So, Poor
That's
Things,
okay.
it's yeah, Poor Things, all the lemon cakes, I adored it. I didn't know really what to expect going in because the director, yeah, Yorgos
Love Demos.
Lanthimos, his stuff scares me, generally speaking. I understand what he's trying to get at, with his films, but it really normally isn't my thing. I had previously seen The Favorite, which I thought I was going to enjoy, but I had no background in, I'm like, I knew about his movies, but I hadn't seen them, so I ended up walking out of that when it came out like very like viscerally upset. So going into Poor Things, I had this feeling of, all right, I know what to expect. And then when it had a happy ending and a really positive message, I was like, oh, I was really pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, this is his
That,
happy film.
yes, that well, there was definitely a lot of uncomfortable parts. That was sort of the point. But so it was basically a very positive movie with positive messages, but in his sort of like standard, like, this is going to make you a little uncomfortable, just so you know. And so I ended up really enjoying that.
And the discomfort's kind
But
of the
just be,
point, isn't it? It's like, why is this
yeah,
making you uncomfortable? It's because you guys have grown up with Shane around sex and nudity and what does she call it? Furious jumping with Wedderburn. And
yes.
it's kind of, let me
Yes.
just show you this stuff and you're going to feel uncomfortable about it, but ask yourselves why. And can you be more Bella? Like, be more Bella.
Mhm. Mhm. I liked that part of the movie in that it did challenge us, but even though I was sitting there uncomfortable for a lot of the sex scenes, which, again, that was the point. But I did also laugh a lot. I found this to be a pretty funny movie, but like the laughs were just
Yeah.
kind of like, wow, like
And
also like
deliberately
this is
so. Yeah.
yes.
It's a comedy. It's a black comedy. Were
Mhm.
you surprised it got so many noms? I mean, it's got 11, only losing to Oppenheimer with 13. I mean, it kind of makes me happy that the Academy, which is supposed to be this male, stale, pale demographic cohort, can give so many nominations to such a radical, crazy, gonzo film.
I think it's just because everything in it was so well crafted, and as you can
Mm.
sort of you can see the progression of the works of the director, of the actors he's worked with. With Emma Stone in The Favorite.
Yeah.
Really, that's how you can appreciate it. Is sort of like this sort of capstone of all his previous works, and I think that that's very much what's being recognized, of like, this guy's out here doing really really interesting, unusual things. And I wasn't after I saw it, I wasn't surprised, just because of what Emma Stone did in the movie. I thought for sure she's going to get a Best Actress. There's going to
Mm.
be, some technical. I've always figured there's going to be some technical nominations. Like, did it get a nomination for Best Costume?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Like, I knew those 2 for sure, and I already know that for Halloween, I can get a Bella cosplay because I do wanna be more Bella. But yeah, I hadn't thought about it in terms of, like, I was surprised that it gotten so many nominations. But I guess, yeah, that is one way to think of it. But, like, overall, with this year in movies and the Oscar nominations and all the other awards we've been seeing, movies are back in a big way, like, a big
Yeah.
way.
I think this was the
Yeah.
big post-COVID year, so the quality of
Mhm.
movies last year was phenomenal. I think next year, well, this year, let's see what happens with the strikes. But I have to say that coming
Mhm.
into, I watched most of these at the London Film Festival, and it's kind of it's a
Mhm.
second tier festival, so it's kind of best of the rest. And the
Mhm.
films that came in with buzz, like everyone was talking about, were you've got to
Mhm.
see Poor Things, and you've got to see
Mhm.
Zone of Interest coming in from Cannes. So Poor Things coming in from Venice. Those were the films that everyone was like, "Oh my god, these films are amazing." And Anatomy of a Fall, actually. Okay, so anything else
Yeah.
from either of you on Poor Things?
I have not read the book it was based on. It was based on a book that came out in the early 90s. And I'm glad it took this long for a film adaptation because it's the sort of story that has to wait for the right combination of time, of place, of people involved. And yes, just that because they decided to make this sort of a steampunk, late Victorian fantasy, it did have to wait for us to get to a certain point in visual effects to
Yeah,
really
I
make that
agree.
world believable. So,
And maybe acceptability for female nudity and sexuality, although we're not all the way there
yeah,
yet.
and male nudity as well,
Yeah,
which was
absolutely.
very, very unflinching throughout this film.
God bless Mark
Um,
Ruffalo. He was brave too.
yeah, yeah, he's not a young guy anymore, and it's not necessarily easy when you are young. So, but I felt like they were out there having fun, and that
They look
was
like they're
that was
having a
what,
lot of fun. I mean, Ruffalo
yeah.
looked like he's having the time of his life. I have to say, so of
Mhm,
the films we discussed Oppenheimer at the top of the
mhm,
pod. I did read the very long history book upon which it's based, and I did enjoy
mhm.
it, but it was very challenging. And I would say,
Oh
having
yeah.
read the book, I really appreciated Chris Nolan's ability to make it concise and just draw out those little moments that gave us the kind of the sense of the backstory, and also threading in the Strauss story with the Alamo,
Mhm.
with the sort of
Yeah.
Manhattan Project. I think actually having read just how big that book was and how everything was in it, I kind of appreciated Nolan's adapted screenplay more. I think if you haven't read Alistair Gray's book on Poor Things, you absolutely have to, because it's hilarious and so much of it is captured in the film. Although the film very much is from Bella's point of view. So in the book, it's told, you've got letters from Wedderburn, and like all the other
Mhm.
characters have voices too. So again, Lanthimos being very kind of female forward and has very much centered it on Bella, but it's really hilarious and just as outlandish. Like I watched the film and I thought this has to be all Lanthimos, but actually no, it's in the source material. So I would encourage people to read Poor Things too.
Yeah,
Okay.
one other thing I did want to say about Poor Things was I really appreciated the supporting cast and how so many people were so supportive of Bella. The wonderful Willem
Mm,
Dafoe is this, he's is this person who's reaching the end of their life, and they've gained a lot of perspective. We hear these bits and pieces about how his father, the doctor, experimented on him, and that's why his face is all cut up and why
yeah.
his digestive system is all bypassed and all this other weirdness about him physically. And you hear him talk about it in a way that he's really come to terms with all of it and learned how to process it and make something positive about what he's doing, that he's not going to do this to other people. And they say very briefly at the beginning of the film that he had contemplated making Bella into basically a mistress, but that he very quickly is like, no, she's my daughter. And for him to very quickly have that perspective and
Yeah, well,
have
that's
him
different to the
already
book.
gone
In
through.
the book, he's not experimented on, and he has just created a sex toy. So again, that's
Oh,
Lanthimos making it probably more profound and more interesting in some ways.
well,
Although,
that's good, and I
yeah,
like that. I like that change a lot, and the fact that then he, is the one that Godwin is the one who's like, no, she's got to go out there and experience the world. This has to happen.
yeah,
Um,
that
Mm.
that, that
and
puberty has to, or
That
intellectual.
particular that particular change came rather abruptly for me. That
Oh,
was
okay.
it
yeah,
was like he was right, because he was just like right before that they were like in the carriage, like like forcing her to pass out from her like toddler style tantrums. But then,
mhm.
like just maybe there was like a deleted scene somewhere that didn't make it in, but that explained it. Or
Okay. On to the next film. So only one nomination less is Killers of the Flower Moon, with 10 nominations, including Best Picture, Best Director for Scorsese, actress for Lily Gladstone, Supporting Actor for De Niro, Cinematography, Costume, Editor, Thelma Schoonmaker, Iconic Editor, Score. Got Best Song. I didn't even realize that had a song in it when I saw that, and Production Design. So 10 noms. Is this a film you've seen, Steph? Any thoughts on this one?
yes. I'd say it's like a 3.5 out of 5 for me. Just that it was in the long department and I had to go to the bathroom in the cinema. I loved the way he just put in the background details. And, so I caught in the cinema the first time that, Lily Gladstone's guardian was in the KKK in their little parade
Mm, mm.
after Indigenous military mothers.
So, I have actually not seen Killers of the Flower Moon yet, but I'll stick around for a little bit and just listen to you guys talk about it because I would like to, and I might just pop in with some questions.
I think when I reviewed it, what I said was that I felt that if you're watching it at the cinema, which is what I did, that it's a
Mhm.
3.5 out of 5 movie because it's just too long for the cinema. Like no one wants to sit there, no matter how comfortable your seat is, for that length of time. Your bladder can't take it, your attention span can't take it. And also the lack of discipline of having to do it for cinema audiences, because Martin Scorsese had all the Apple money and could just go as long as he wanted to, meant that I felt
Mhm.
the story hadn't been edited properly and hadn't been pruned properly and really sagged in the middle. So, broadly speaking, Killers of the Flower Moon is a very important true life historical story about how the Osage people were kind of swindled of their money and actually murdered for their money in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. And I just feel that there's a long period in the middle where Leonardo DiCaprio is poisoning his own wife, for heaven's sake. And it just gets very dull. But I felt that if I had been at home, maybe watching it over 2 nights and sort of self-curating it almost as a mini series, I would have thought it was much better. So for me, I don't feel like Scorsese's made like an amazing film for quite some time. And this was not an amazing film. I feel that maybe it's getting nominations because of the very important subject matter. I love that Lily Gladstone's getting a nomination. Was it one of my best actress performances of the year? Maybe not, but I hope she will win. She won't, obviously, but because I think Emma Stone will, but let's see. But to me, this is a film which I do not feel deserves 10 nominations. And it's got, as I said to Steph, it's got a nom for best song. I didn't even realize there was a song in it. So technically great. It's Scorsese, so it's handsome and it's respectful, but I didn't find it that interesting. Steph, how do you feel?
Oh, I agree with Justin Chang from NPR, where he said, it's just pretty obvious that Scorsese's really only interested in the white characters, and then just like, what does that mean when, this is, or considering, like the important subject matter, but then it's just like, that's Scorsese's thing of, just like, he's, made so many mobster movies, and then this is just yet another mobster movie in a coat of paint, in a different coat of paint. So.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like, why is Bob De Niro getting a nom for this? Just because he's Bob De Niro, like, get some imagination. Yeah. So I find this a frustrating one to have 10 nominations. Julia, I mean, maybe see it at some point when it hits, free
Streaming.
to streaming. But yeah, I was a bit
Well,
underwhelmed. I gave
it
this
sort of
3 out of
sounds
5.
like right.
Yeah, and
It sort
also
of
there's
sounds
like
like
there's what this
I'll
movie
go.
could be, and then it's just like this like domestic thriller about, just like from specifically Lily's perspective of just like all your family members start dropping dead, and then just like it's like they could, and like you just like slowly put the pieces together that it's your husband and his uncle doing that. Maybe that would be too girly for Martin Scorsese. I don't know.
But the psychological interiority of it would have been far more interesting than watching her just look quieter and quieter as she slowly poisons. I mean, I almost felt you could have
Right.
shot this as a tight sort of 2 hour, almost like a Roman Polanski paranoid thriller, where this woman is being horrifically gaslit by a husband who she loves and he claims to love her. And yet he's killing her family. He's blowing up the house where her kids are staying. Like, I feel that they really could have done it as a very personal, intimate, nasty interior film and chose not to, evidently. So yeah, kudos to Justin Chang for calling it out. But nonetheless, I mean, you just think Scorsese makes this film, this story that's so important gets told and maybe wouldn't have gotten told. So, and Lily Gladstone gets some platform. So maybe this is okay, and this is the way it had to happen. But I found this unworthy of being the third most non-picture.
I just wanted to jump in and say it kind of sounds like it suffers from the same problem as The Irishman,
Yeah,
where
too much
it
money,
got
too long.
yeah,
Pick a lane.
and of course, The Irishman was released during the pandemic, and that was a perfect movie during lockdown to stay up all night watching it, which I did. And it sort of sounds like he thought he could do that again, and it's like, no,
But
no, no,
they're
we're
not films. They're miniseries. Like I watched The Irishman was the closing night film of the London Film Festival the year it came
mhm,
out. It was It was literally physically painful to sit. I just feel that the
mhm,
streamers throwing so much money at people like Scorsese has
mhm,
given them latitude, and they need to pick a lane. Make a miniseries, make Boardwalk
mhm,
Empire, or make a feature film. And I respect. We've talked about this, Julia. I
mhm,
respect Ridley Scott for making Napoleon and saying 2 hours is the max. That's it.
mhm.
Okay, so on to Barbie, which is our fourth nominated film. 8 nominations, including Best Picture, Supporting Actor for Gosling, Supporting Actress for America Ferrera, Costume, 2 songs, so competing against itself for I'm Just Ken and What Was I Made For, Production Design and Adapted Screenplay, not original screenplay, which is a bit weird. So obviously this was very controversial because Greta Gerwig was not nominated for director, and she was also we didn't get Margot Robbie nominated for Best Actress, and people were like, oh, Oscar's so anti-feminist, and this is so ironic, but this is exactly what Barbie's talking about. I'm going to be really interested to hear what you both think, because for me, Barbie was a 4 out of 5 film. Thought it had a lot of great ideas, great songs. It was a lot of fun. It was really funny, but I didn't think it was like a masterpiece. I'm really super happy it made a bunch of money, but to me, 8 noms felt, if anything, generous. So I don't, and to me, it was Ken's film. So the fact that Ryan Gosling was the one who got nominated was absolutely fine by me. How did you guys feel? Are you shocked and horrified and outraged that Barbie didn't get more nominations?
I guess it just matters a little bit less to me because I didn't get into the whole Barbie craze. I was more, because of course the Barbieheimer, which was just an amazing, moment of syncretism for marketing and just like a sort of cultural phenomenon that it felt like we all really needed this past
Mm.
summer. But for me it was like it was just a lot of artifice, and it's like, guys, it's just a movie. At the end of the day, it's just a movie, and if this is Greta Gerwig's capstone moment, the way it is for Chris Nolan and Oppenheimer, then I think she should be doing better. um
I would argue that her Little Women and her Late and Lady Bird arguably were better than this for pure direction.
Exactly, exactly. I just felt it was very feminism 101. And there was some things like, we mothers, whatever that quote was, we mothers stand still so we can see how far our daughters have come. My mom never did that. She's always lived her own life and done what she wanted to. I'm sure that there are, I mean, like, I definitely have experienced seeing a lot of women who do that for their children in general, but for me, it was just kind of like, that's not a universal experience. Like,
It's also not feminism necessarily. I still find it weird to have this perfect Barbie. There's Margot Robbie meant to be this figure of feminism. I found the whole project suspect.
mhm. And I
And the
do love
feminism
Margot
of it
Robbie. I think
suspect.
she's amazing.
Yeah, I love Margot Robbie, and she's obviously incredibly smart and now incredibly rich. What's
Mhm,
wonderful about these Best Picture nominations is Emma Stone was actually produced on Poor Things, so she's nommed for Best Picture, and Margot
mhm,
Robbie's nommed for Barbie as a producer, which is huge. But I kind of felt like, from the feminism standpoint, both Poor Things and Anatomy of a Fall probably had more meaningful things to say about women in society than Barbie did. So, how
mhm.
about you,
Yes.
Steph? What was your feeling?
Yeah, I'd give it like a somewhere between a 3 and a 3.5. Yeah, I agree with Julia that it felt like feminism 101, and like I've spent, like half my life marinating on these subjects, and I felt like it wasn't what I needed to start thinking about these things. And yeah, it goes back to, right, just like about like, like the issue of like portraying, still trying to have like Barbie, but make it feminist for the new generations. Like you have plus size Barbies in the background, but still in the main plot, having cellulite is social suicide, right? So Barbie was a better movie than Oppenheimer, but it wasn't like an earth-shattering masterpiece. And
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have
I
to like
think
hard disagree that it's a better film than Oppenheimer, but we can all agree that Poor Things is better than Barbie. Let's put it that way.
yes, yes,
I actually,
Anatomy of a
I
Fall
actually
and
think
Poor
Barbie
Things
is
are
better
the
than
more
yeah.
are the more meaningful films about women's experiences, about like leaving that trifling lover that's your first time, or the struggles of modern career and parenting, and trying to have an equal partnership when the world just doesn't work out that way sometimes.
Agree,
uh
agree.
or there was, I guess, as far as like the inside baseball of the awards stuff, I think the being in the adapted category is the right choice, because no one would have come out to see this film if it was not based on a pre-existing
Yeah, but
IP.
Greta
Come
and
on.
Noah were really pissed about it, right? Because they knew they had a better chance at the original screenplay. So,
Oh,
and I
well,
and I have and I've
and
kind of loved seeing like the two people who I think have campaigned the hardest in the worst way for Oscars have been Bradley Cooper and Greta Gerwig. So they did have a sort of secret Schadenfreude happiness. They both weren't nominated for director or
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
and like, look, like I've seen Gerwig's other films, I've seen Marriage Story, but what you posted in the uh Discord about, just like how Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach got together, it's just like, look, maybe there's a feminist discussion, or look, I think in general, as a feminist thing, maybe we should retire the term homewrecker, but there comes a point where you don't have to be that person that someone who's determined to blow up their life is going to do that with.
I have to say, I mean, I can't see Greta Gerwig right because I love Jennifer Jason Leigh so hard, and Fargo has just reignited my love for her. So,
Hmm.
yeah. Anyway,
Fast
let's move
Times at
on.
Ridgemont High was a little before my time, so I don't know what I've seen her in, but
Watch Fargo.
Um,
Watch the season of Fargo. That's all you need to see.
all
I
right.
did just want to interject, just in terms of like the competitiveness of like who deserves what, etc. I do still feel like this was just a really fun year for movies, and like I
Mm,
just like I just want everyone to get. I just hope everyone has fun and everyone gets an award. I don't know. Just like coming back to some level of normalcy in the world despite
was
other
beautiful.
conflicts
Yeah.
and issues that have kicked off since the pandemic. I mean, like this was just a really fun summer, and a lot of like very like movies that also make you think. I don't want to denigrate people who came to Barbie and when we're able to think about these things or process them maybe for the first time or in a new way. For just because the three of us are coming at it from a different angle of where maybe we've just learned more, we've just about it more in our own lives, our own educations, whatever. If for someone coming to this movie and this was the first time they really thought these thoughts, great. If that opened it
Yeah.
up for them,
Oh yeah. I don't think
we
we're
don't.
denigrating them at all. I just think we're saying,
Yeah.
like, isn't it amazing that we're discussing whether Poor Things, Barbie, or Anatomy of a Fall are better
Hmm.
articulating the position of women in modern? I mean, that's phenomenal, right? I mean, it's
Yes,
just an
exactly.
amazing clutch of films. It's more and rather than instead of or denigrating for sure.
Yes.
Okay, so on to the next most nominated film with 7 awards, Maestro, the film about Leonard Bernstein with Bradley Cooper, Carey Mulligan, both of whom are nominated for Best Actor. It's nominated for Best Picture, but not Director for Bradley Cooper, and I bet he's really upset about that. DP,
Hmm.
Matthew Libatique, it's partly in black and white, very well deserved. Original screenplay, sound, and makeup. Interestingly, a film with another nom, the only nom that film got was Golda, and David Baddiel, who's a very prominent Jewish British comedian, but also wrote a phenomenal book called Jews Don't Count, tweeted when this was nominated for makeup and Golda was nominated, wow, 2 films were literally just nominated for Jew face, so controversial.
Oh my
Bradley
God.
Cooper has fought hard for nominations. Have either of you seen this film? And if so, what do you think? Does this deserve to be the 5th most nommed film?
So I haven't seen it, and it's just so sad. I feel so bad for Bradley Cooper because you can tell this was his passion project. He wanted this so badly, and just really wanted to bring this story to life. And every sort of Yeah, a promotional thing I've seen around it is, talking about that passion and just how hard they tried to recreate, some very specific historic moments and, how much the children were just like, yeah, yeah, that's how parents were. And it didn't really seem to resonate fully.
No.
Yeah,
Steph, how about you? Have you seen Maestro?
I haven't, sorry.
Okay, that's fine. We'll make it very quick. I mean, all I would say is for me, this was a bit like Killers of the Flower Moon. I kind of admired it. I admired the performances, the evident care of the historic recreation of costume and moment, but it fell flat for me. I felt it was, yeah, just a very blah biopic. I didn't really get it. And I love classical music. It ends with a very wonderful sort of scene from Mahler 2, one of my favorite symphonies. But to me, this was kind of like, sometimes you watch a movie and it feels insincere, like it just feels like such award bait, and this just felt like that. So it's
there
on
you
Netflix.
go.
I would encourage you guys to watch it, but I don't think to me, this is not in the same category as like Poor Things, Oppenheimer, Barbie. It's just not. And I will be upset if it wins anything, and I don't think it will. Okay, so then we have a far more interesting clutch of films for us to talk about. Zone of Interest, Anatomy of a Fall, American Fiction, and Holdovers. These 4 films all have 5 nominations each. They are all what I would call smaller independent films that may or may not have found this kind of audience and recognition. And for me, these are all phenomenal. They're at minimum 5-star films. For me, Zone of Interest is another level beyond. Steph, do you want to give the 5 minutes of why people should watch Holdovers? If you can keep it to
Okay,
5, I don't know.
yes. Okay, so if you have seen Harold and Maude, this is Harold and Maude's more normal cousin of same themes of, neglect and rich boy with mommy issues and the disciplinary problems. Curmudgeonly Paul Giamatti, or it's a good Christmas movie for the rest of us. Good curmudgeonly Paul Giamatti learns the lesson of showing each other grace at Christmas.
It's a Christmas film that will endure. I think of all of these films, as much as I love them, it's the one that we're both going to watch the most.
Yeah, this is instant classic, like put it in my Christmas rotation in the future. This is the Christmas movie for those of us who have experienced loss, abandonment, or estrangement from the people we love. And this is, yeah.
It's a delightful film,
Well,
and it's such a quiet, peaceful, slow burning, slow building film. Like I say, films, you come into these festivals and there are films that are really talked about, Zone of Interest, Poor Things. Holdovers just crept up on me. Even when I was watching it, I think it crept up on me. And
Oh yeah,
even now, 4 months later, 5 months later, it's the film that resonates.
yeah. They lie to you in the trailers too, which is a genius stroke because they think it, or they sell it to you as more of like a group of the boys, like in the Dead Poet
Yeah,
Society,
okay. And
but
it's not.
it's not.
So The Holdovers is nominated for Best Picture, So Deserved, Actor for Paul Giamatti, Supporting Actor for Divine Joy Randolph, Editor, a bit surprising, and Original Screenplay. Julia, did you see this one?
No, I want to though. I know my parents
Do.
watched it and they said it was really good. At first, from the trailers, I was getting the Dead Poet Society vibe. But Steph, now that you have said Harold and Maude, which a movie
Mhm.
was a movie which I was made to watch as a teenager by my dad. We're all a little bit of cinephiles in my family.
Mm.
And as this was presented as something foundational that I had to see. So now that I know that it's more akin to that, I'm much more interested. And I love Paul Giamatti. How can you not? How
How
can you
can you
not?
not? Okay, so
Well, like
another of the.
it doesn't
Oh,
it doesn't have the absurdity of Harold and Maude, but it's the underlying emotional thrust and heart, and yeah, it's Harold and
Gotcha.
Maude's normal cousin.
it's just delightful. It's just delightful.
So does the main
Um,
character walk off and become a hippie as well?
He
eh,
could in the future. I can see that
Okay.
I
down
can
the
see that.
line, but
Okay, so on to American Fiction, which was another 5 nominated film. It's also this small, tiny little indie film up for Best Picture. Also, Best Actor for Jeffrey Wright, who I think we all love, just
Oh
done
yeah.
superb work over the years. Supporting actor for Sterling K. Brown. I'm so delighted he got that nom. I didn't think he would. Best Score and Adapted Screenplay. Did either of you see this one yet?
No.
Okay, I'll
I
just give a
feel like
little
I'm so
summary
not
then.
helpful.
No, 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 not at all.
Unfortunately not. I thought it was on streaming already, so I thought, oh, this weekend I'll catch it on streaming. So before I talk to Bina,
I'm gonna go on
I
a
can
limb
gush
and
about American
say
fiction. This seems like social satire right up my alley, though. So
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I think you're both gonna absolutely die laughing, but also be very moved by it. So it is a
Mhm.
social satire. It's a satire about, he's a black writer, Jeffrey Wright, and he's really annoyed that people are writing what he seems to be very sort of cliche-ridden, pandering fiction for white people who have a social conscience
Mhm.
and want to be woke. And it's a really, really darkly funny film, but again, it suckers you in because you think it's going to be one thing, and then it's another thing as well. And it's actually a very moving drama about family and people our age or slightly older who are dealing with parents who are getting old, maybe getting dementia, like having to deal with parents when you as the child kind of become the adult in that relationship. Jeffrey Wright's brother, Sterling K. Brown, is kind of dealing with that coming out of the closet and having a bit of a moment. And there's a lot going on as family drama underneath and alongside the social satire. I think, to me, it was, again, just a really surprising film. Kind of an old-fashioned film because it's just story and words and acting. And to me, it's a delight. This is 5 noms. So like Holdovers, I think you guys are going to love this. The other two remaining 5 nom films are Zone of Interest and Anatomy of a Fall. Have either of you seen Anatomy of a Fall?
No,
yes,
and I'm not aware of it, but just you go ahead and go off. Go
So the
off,
summary,
queen.
so the summary of this one is Sandra Hüller, this amazing German actress, is a very successful writer. She's married to a guy who is a frustrated, less successful writer. They live in the sort of French Alps. There is an accident. She is arrested by the police and put on trial for murdering someone. I don't want to spoil it. And the witness of her child is going to become very important. So it's a courtroom drama. It's done in 3 different languages: English, French, German. Language is a huge part of it. But the
hmm
real kind of like intellectual heart of it is when you're a successful career woman, how apologetic do you need to be to the guy who isn't? And when he's
hmm
accusing you of not giving him room and not supporting him and blah, 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 is that because you were domineering and ambitious and bossy and took the oxygen out of the room? Or should he have just tried harder? Was he just not good enough? So to me, the fact that, so this has been nominated for Best Picture like Barbie, but also Best Director. So Justine Triet got the actress nom, and she also got the screenplay nom that I think, is very important. And I think that she's a French director, and I think this is the kind of, for me as a working woman, this was the feminist film I wanted.
yeah.
And it's a
Okay.
great courtroom drama too. How about you, Steph? What did you make of it?
This is like 5 stars for me. If the dog vomits aspirin, you must acquit. But the I know this is really just the film about the modern woman struggling to have it all. And what happens when, just like as life happens, success does not find both partners equally in the workplace. And just like around, the entire like real struggle of the marriage of, their son's accident and and he's visually impaired as a result, and how much each spouse blames the other for the fact that it happened. And that's, the that happened when the kid was a toddler and now he's a tween. So, and about how those, it's that classic film this year about how resentments build up in a marriage over decades, and with a refreshing feminist twist on it. And it is, like, for the film is pretty much from her perspective, so we never see her murdering anyone, and it's rather hard to believe that she actually did murder someone even while you're watching the film. But you are just like watching and wondering, just like, does she really think that, like, or right, it's just a matter of just like, like, you can understand the confidence of knowing that the truth is on your side, but then it's just like, for her, like, like, just wondering, like, is she like stopping and working her lawyer by like
Mm.
having a cigarette with him at late at night, or does she just want a damn cigarette because she's on trial for murder?
I know. I have to say, this is a masterclass in acting from Sandra Hüller, who plays the lead role in this. She is a German actress who I've seen for decades working in Europe, and I'm just so delighted she's finally having her moment with this film. I would
hmm
encourage any of you to go watch this. It is It's a trickier film. I think it's having the dialogue Barbie is also having in a different way, in a much more commercial mainstream way that Poor Things is having also in its kind of crazy gonzo way. It's what a time to be alive. What a time to have these issues discussed in film is all I will say. And then
Big year for women. Big year for women.
and that brings us to our final of the 5 nomination films, which is Zone of Interest, nominated for Best Picture, Best International Feature. Interestingly, France didn't put forward Anatomy of a Fall for its sort of entry for international feature. It should have done because it would have got that too. Directing for Jonathan Glazer, British director, came up through music videos. Best sound design, best adapted screenplay from, God bless him, the late Martin Amis's novel. To me, like I said before, this with Poor Things and Oppenheimer was just on another level. Technically, audacity, searing, visceral, important, just all-encompassing picture set in Auschwitz in the family of Rudolf Hess's villa. A very stylistic choice is made to never show the camp. So you only see the villa, the domestic life in the villa, but you hear the camp. You see the impact of the camp on the kids, on the family. It is all around. And you kind of see it askance, right? So it's an audacious film. It's a challenging film. It also stars Sandra Hüller as Rudolf Hess's wife. Phenomenal performance. For me, she should have been nominated for both of these films, one as Best Actress, one as Best Supporting. I can't speak enough of this film. I think it's so complex, it's so searing, and we're in a moment, aren't we? We're in a moment of very blatant rising anti-Semitism. So I just feel always having the steady drumbeat of films that try and tackle anti-Semitism and the Holocaust are very important. Have either of you managed to see this one yet?
I need to.
You need
I
to
should.
you need to gear yourself up for it though, because it's going to punch you hard in the stomach.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
As it
I
should,
do
right? It's
want.
the Holocaust film, it should.
Yeah, yeah. No, I have not seen a Holocaust film in quite some time.
Cool. How about you, Steph? Have you managed to see this one?
If not, it's on my list.
Well, I would say, as much as I'm confident you're both going to love American Fiction, I think you'll both be provoked and fascinated by Zone of Interest. I just think it's doing
Okay.
something so fascinating. And you talked a lot about capstone movies, Julia. I've loved every
Mhm,
single one of Jonathan Glazer's films. He makes them very infrequently. And I think this is
mhm.
kind of like the coming together of so much. It's sort of, I really hope it gets international feature because I think it deserves it. But Anatomy of a Fall could
Okay.
equally get it. This is a very strong clutch of 4 films. Like, if you had Desert Island Films and you could only have these 4, I think it'd be a beautiful representative mix.
Oh, easily.
And I just want to talk a little bit about the next one. So there's only one film with 3 nominations. And my friend Julia,
Mhm.
it is Napoleon. And dear
Oh,
listener, if you want to hear us talk wax lyrical about Napoleon, I will put a link in the show notes to the episode where we do just that. It got nominated for Best Costume, Production Design, and Visual Effects, which I think is all very well deserved. And a film that I think was a little bit, people were sniffy about it and laughed at a little bit, including me. I had my issues with it. But 3
mhm.
nominations, motherfuckers. 3 nominations. So Ridley Scott, go Ridley.
Yeah. No, I'm still waiting to see if we get that extended edition,
Oh, we
director's
are.
cut
Yeah.
that you had mentioned.
Don't know the date yet, but we will get it. And then in the 2 nominations camp, it's a lot of those that get sound and VFX, but Past Lives, beautiful film by Greta Lee, first time feature film. Oh, just again, a wonderful
Brazilian song.
small indie film that has been nominated for Best Picture. So it's only got 2 noms, but Best Picture and Best Original Screenplay. How phenomenal is that? Have either of you seen this one?
I think the director is
No.
Celine Song.
Yes,
Yeah,
you're
Greta
right.
Lee's the star actress.
The Star.
But
Sorry, sorry, got that wrong. Yeah.
yeah. So okay, first off, I haven't seen Napoleon to your Vok about it. I believe that Ridley Scott can deliver a director's cut that's a cut above the theatrical release though. So
I agree. But Past Lives, I'm just really pleased it's got some recognition. I think it means Greta Lee will find it easier to finance her next film. Not Greta Lee, Celine Song. And
yes.
that will be good. And that will be good for the world. It will also be good for the world if Greta Lee gets more parts because she was phenomenal. It's just a great film. I would encourage you all go see Past Lives. A bit like
Yeah.
Holdovers, just really haunting. Like I've seen it a couple of times now. Really
Yeah,
haunting.
I'm not an immigrant myself. I'm not from an immigrant family, but it's it is really just about the road not taken and your regrets and or just, the tantalizing allure of what could have been. And, I appreciate that, they didn't go for soapy melodrama, but they just tried to, just like really explore with coming to terms with your major life choices have consequences, and they influence who you become, and they influence who you end up with. So
Yeah, beautifully articulated stuff. Also in the 2 nominations count, we have Society of the Snow, International Picture and Makeup. Really love that. I think it's the best film made on the Andes plane disaster. Really moving, really haunting, beautifully rendered. So I'd encourage anyone to see that. It's on Netflix. Another Netflix film is Nyad, which got nominated for Best Actress for Annette Bening, who's never won. So I think that's kind of like you've had an amazing year. We're going to give you a shout out. And supporting actress for Jodie Foster, who, a bit like Mr. Wedderburn, Mark Ruffalo, is just having the time of her life in this role. So I was glad they both got nods, but it felt like it was more sort of, we're going to give you these nods because we really, really like you and we appreciate you.
Yeah, it's that
um
recognition of what you're doing out there, and
Yeah.
which yeah, I think that's a good thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to quickly just interject. It's been a really good year for A24.
Yeah, I mean, they're a
That,
great studio, right? I mean, they just produce
yeah,
phenomenal films.
yeah, Past Lives, Poor Things, Iron Claw, which didn't get nominated for anything, but I would love to talk about in a future VOC if anyone is interested.
Absolutely. And once I've seen it, we
So,
can do that for sure.
yes,
And
yeah,
then rounding out the 2 nom camp were Creator and Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning 1, with 2 each for sound design and VFX. So the big
yeah.
movie. I'm trying to see if
Mission
there's anything else.
Impossible was a fun romp. I'm not big into that franchise, but like, just, it's an action film. Just sit back and enjoy yourself.
I enjoyed it. I had fun. I mean, I take them for what they are. Maybe in
Yeah.
the 1 nom, because there's a lot of things that get 1 nom. Maybe worth giving a shout out to the actor Coleman Domingo, who got nominated for Best Actor for Rustin, which is also on Netflix. Really important story about a gay civil rights leader. Phenomenal performance. Really happy he got nommed. Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple, which is not a film I enjoyed actually, but I'm glad to see her get nominated for it. We also get cinematographer Ed Lachman nominated for El Conde, which is a great film about Pinochet in Chile. Black and white, well worth watching just for cinematography. So those were the ones I just wanted to point out with 1 nom. I thought the other one that was quite interesting was Indiana Jones getting nommed for 1 for score. So that was kind of interesting in the 1 nom category. May December, which I think people might have thought would get more. Todd Haynes, starring Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman, only got a nom for original screenplay, which I feel is right because I just was very disappointed in that film.
Right, and with that film, it's always, or I haven't seen it, but it is, like, back to the inside baseball, is just like, how much is the subject matter like working against it, or like, again, I haven't seen it, I don't know, but then it's just like, at some point, like, maybe that's like, overall a better thing.
Yeah, I mean, May December is, for people who don't know, it's the story of a woman who was a high school teacher, seduced one of her students when he was very underage, served time in prison for it, but when she gets out, they get married and have kids who are now grown and going to college. And that woman is played by Julianne Moore. And then into her life comes Natalie Portman, who's a famous Hollywood actress who's going to make a movie of the story. And so Natalie Portman's character is kind of shadowing Julianne Moore's and trying to learn from her and observe from her. So as with all Todd Haynes films, it's kind of like a female melodrama. I really struggled with it. I love both of those actresses. I love Todd Haynes actually, but this one fell a little bit flat for me. But it's interesting that it was really that snubbed. I was surprised they only got 1. I thought maybe they would have thrown 1 out to sort of like Portman or more. Portman's actually really amazing. She's got a monologue straight to camera at the end of the film that's really phenomenal. So
Yeah, another film that's, I mean, I guess it has at least 1 nomination. The Boy and the Heron. It's the new film by
yes.
Hayao Miyazaki.
Yeah.
I'm not big on an auteur's circle jerk about their body of work wrapped in the magic of cinema, but it's it is poignant, like, author tract about escapism and telling people to like, maybe just like stop just like using his work to distract from their real life problems. But
I would imagine Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse will win animated feature, and I would imagine of the docs, I've seen all of them. I would imagine 20 Days in Mariupol will justifiably win best doc. I didn't cover the shorts, not because I don't love all of you guys who were into shorts. We just didn't have the time. Thank you guys for
Gosh, I need
joining this whistle stop tour. I know I kind of moved us through so fast, but I had a hard stop. Thank you for joining. And I just want to say to all of you out there, let us know if you like this episode and if you want us to talk about more films, because we love films. So we're happy to talk about them.
and I feel like I need to see more movies because it sounds like, yeah, like we've already said, this was a great year for movies. So I'm definitely going to go back and watch some of the ones that were talked about just now.
The good news is there's not going to be much this summer because of the strikes last year, so you can spread them out, right? They're all on streaming, so you can sort of
Yeah.
you can drip feed yourself some amazing films. I think 23
Yes.
is really one of those years. 2016 was another one. It was a fine vintage for cinema, and especially female-centered cinema. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And so that means, well, because of the strike, we can just focus on the one movie that really matters coming out, and that's Dune Part 2.
Oh,
Mhm.
absolutely. Tickets already booked. Okay, folks, it was lovely to talk to you. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend, and I'll speak to you all soon.
Yep.
All right. Talk to you later. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.